Welcome to another Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings film review. In this video, we are going to be reviewing the Steelers' 37-15 Sunday Night Football victory against the Jets. This was Russell Wilson's first start of the season, so we'll have a couple of his plays to break down, among others that were important from this game. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you that have been following along with these film reviews, and those of you who have been following our podcast here on the YouTube channel or wherever you download podcasts. The audio version is available there. Also like to thank those of you who have been following along on social media. We are at STCF 715 on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. That's at STCF 715. On Twitter in particular, on Chiefs and Steelers game days, we are active, especially right after the game, kind of breaking down what happened. But let's get to this film review. And we're going to start here in the first quarter with about 10:42 to go in the first quarter. The Jets have the ball, and they've got a third down and about 8 at their own 24-yard line. So the Jets line up here, and they appear to be in 11 personnel. They've got Breece Hall, the running back, and they've got their tight end over here. And the Steelers have countered. They actually look like they are playing in dime here on third down. So that means they've got 6 defensive backs. 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got their 4 down, and it seems like Patrick Queen is the lone linebacker on the field right now. Seems to be their guy when they go to dime. All right, so let's see what the Jets are trying to do here. So what they end up doing, they bring in Garrett Wilson in behind Davante Adams to get him a free release. And they end up running Adams on a clear out route, and they bring Wilson in to run an out route behind him. Over on this side, Mike Williams comes in and runs a dig. So if we watch as this develops, the Steelers are running their kind of standard cover 3. So Porter's dropping, Dante Jackson's dropping, and is this Deshaun Elliott, it looks like, in the middle of the field. And you can see the route combination. You're also getting Breece Hall leaking out over the middle, and then the tight end comes out late after Chip helping. But you can see that route combination here against the cover 3, and it actually works to get. There's a little bit of a window. You've got the underneath defender here, so this isn't like a easy throw. Maybe it's one that Rodgers could fit in, but really you got Garrett Wilson coming wide open on the out route, right? You got Adams carrying Dante Jackson in his deep zone. Here's the underneath defender. Wilson's got a ton of room over here. So this is, and if you look at where Rodgers is looking, it's kind of hard to tell here, but this is the route that he wants. So why that pass wasn't completed, we will get into the reasons right now. Let's look at the Steelers' pass rush. We've got Watt, Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward, and Highsmith. And they're all coming. First of all, they've got Watt initially starting on the tight end, and they have the tackle kind of coming back to help. That leaves Ogunjobi one-on-one with the right guard. Cam Hayward gets doubled, and Highsmith is against the left tackle by himself. So the first thing a couple things happen on this play. First of all being that Ogunjobi gets a really good push, right? So if you remember, the line of scrimmage is starting here on the 24-yard line. Right at the snap, and as we go, Ogunjobi just starts walking the guard back. So this is a great pass rush from your interior. This is what you want to do. You limit space. I mean, Ogunjobi's already got him back at like the 18-yard line, having started the line of scrimmage was up here. So walked him back. Hayward is fighting his double team. And Highsmith ends up coming around the corner, but Tyron Smith actually does a pretty good job of just kind of pushing him around the corner so that he can't affect Rodgers. Rodgers hits the back of his drop. He's clearly wants Wilson on the out. He's still looking at that, but he's not ready to throw that ball yet. Now, when Highsmith comes around the corner, Rodgers feels that pressure, and he sidesteps, but he also steps up a little bit. Typically, that wouldn't be a problem, but since Ogunjobi has walked the guard so far back into the backfield, Rodgers stepping up to the amount that he did ended up giving Ogunjobi an angle to come and get him. And just as Wilson, like one could argue this throw could be made right now, but he's now feeling Ogunjobi coming in. The last thing you want to do is attempt a throw when someone could come and hit your arm, so he ends up having to eat this for a sack. So the sack really has three components. One, that Highsmith gets around the corner. Although I would argue that Tyron Smith did a good enough job that really didn't need to force Rodgers to step up. However, the step up would have been harmless anyway if Ogunjobi had not had such a good rush walking the guard so far back into the backfield that Rodgers stepping up ended up giving him an angle. Ideally, like the, highest level pocket movement could have been just like a sidestep this way. I mean, that's a lot to ask someone. I don't think you can like say this is Rodgers' fault per se, but there is something that Rodgers could have done better. That simply being that he didn't really have to move up off his spot because Tyron Smith did enough on this. And if he were to move, if he'd moved more laterally rather than coming up to give Ogunjobi the angle, that also could have given him enough time to make this throw. But that's the difference between someone who's great moving in the pocket and someone who is unreal moving in the pocket. I feel like that's a lot to expect of somebody, but that is one thing that Rodgers could have done better. In any case, the combination of those factors leads to when Wilson does come open, really, it looks like Rodgers wants to make this throw about now. He's kind of rearing back, and this is when he's making his break, right? So that he, and who knows, like maybe there's a little component of this that he's not 100% sure if Wilson is going to break this up or he's going to break this out. So he might be holding this ball for an added split half second just to see his trajectory. And that, if he throws this with like a ton of anticipation, if this is like a really strong quarterback wide receiver relationship where he knows for sure what's going to happen, maybe he can throw it right now. But the other piece of this is maybe he's worried that Joey Porter is still in a position here, this is Dante Jackson, is still in a position where he could fall off the route. So it might be a little too early. Now that he sees that Dante Jackson is committing to go up with Adams, now you can make the throw. So all those factors kind of play into when a quarterback ultimately makes the throw. And at the point when he's ready to make the throw, unfortunately, he's in trouble. Ogunjobi gets the sack, and that forces fourth down. We can see the pass rush again from the end zone view, and the two components you really want to look at are Highsmith coming around the corner. Again, I would argue this is a good rep from Tyron Smith. He manages to push Highsmith around wide enough that he can't affect Rodgers. The other factor being that Ogunjobi comes in on the right guard. I believe that's Elijah Vera Tucker, but I don't know the specific positions of the Jets linemen as well. But see how far back he walks him, so that now that Rodgers is moving up here, Ogunjobi ends up having an angle, and he comes in and makes the sack before Rodgers can get the throw off, forcing a fourth down and a punt. All right, so now we're into the second quarter. At this point, the Steelers are down 7-3, and after getting a field goal on their first drive, they have had 3 consecutive drives end in punts. And they've got 2nd and 17 now at their 24-yard line following a holding penalty on Pat Freiermuth on a second down run play. So they're trying to get out of a hole and hopefully get something going on offense. They come out on this play in 12 personnel. They've got one running back is Jalen Warren, and they've got 2 tight ends, Pat Freiermuth, and they've got Darnell Washington. So, and they move Jefferson over to the left. So they've got both wide receivers set up on the left side, Pickens and Jefferson, and their tight end set up. So this looks like a running formation, right? You generally tend to run out of 12 personnel, although more and more teams, the Chiefs included, have started to throw out of it because of the advantageous looks you can get if your tight ends are good pass catchers. So the Steelers will run play action here to simulate the run and get the linebackers to come up. The Jets actually end up running a cover 3, very similar to what the Steelers tend to run as their like base defense. And what the Steelers try to do here is they actually run Pickens deep, and then they run Jefferson and Freiermuth on deep crossers. And then, I actually misidentified. I thought Dan Moore was Darnell Washington. Darnell Washington's actually right over there, which makes a lot more sense. I was trying to wonder why Washington and Pickens were up on the line of scrimmage. It's because it's not Washington. Washington's right there. So what they end up doing, let's kind of reset the routes here. Pickens is going long. They've got Freiermuth and Jefferson running deep crossers. And then they've got Washington, and then Jalen Warren's going to come out of the backfield, and they're going to run shallow crossers. So this is a nice concept, one that I think typically does better against a man, especially the underneath crossers, right? When you get that like mesh concept coming underneath, one of the ideas is to get defenders to run into each other. Well, that's less effective when they're running zone. They just pass off the defender. Sometimes the deep crossers can work very well against zones, especially when you have a middle of the field safety, because the safety's got to pick one. So the deep safety kind of looks over at one of them, and then there's a chance that you might get the other one to pop open behind. The thing that's beneficial about this play, too, is that the deep safety gets occupied by the crossers in a zone, especially a cover 3 zone. So there's no chance of him helping on the sidelines. So when you're sending someone like Pickens on a go route, he's one-on-one. And Wilson did a good job in this game. When he got Pickens one-on-one, he just let it fly. It's your best deep ball guy, a guy with great hands, great ball skills. When you got him one-on-one, give him a chance. And Wilson did a good job of throwing it up to him. Pickens comes down with the ball, and the Steelers get a 44-yard gain. And this play also helps to talk about one big inefficiency in the NFL, one area that teams can utilize on offense because of the way that the game is set up and just the nature of the play is when you have got a defender one-on-one with a receiver and his head is, you're seeing the back of his helmet, he's not able to turn his head because he's running after the receiver, the underthrown deep ball is such an effective play because the defender doesn't have his head turned. He's not able to make a play on the ball. He doesn't know where it's landing. And the receiver in this case is just able to establish good position, boxing him out before he can locate the ball. But this is also a play where you get a ton of pass interference, right? Especially when you have, in this situation, Pickens doesn't really ever get a step on the defender. And part of that is I think he realizes the ball's underthrown very early. So Pickens, here he's starting to look back for the ball and he's already starting to measure his steps and track the ball. If this were a situation where the ball was thrown way out in front, it's possible Pickens would have just beat the defender. But he turns, he locates the ball well before the defender does, and he's able to make the catch. But in those situations where you do have the defender beat, a lot of times they just run right into you because they can't locate the ball and it's underthrown. So it's a very effective play to use, and I remember feeling like Joe Flacco used it a lot in the mid-2000s, I guess mid-2010s I should say, like that kind of 2008 to 2015 range. It felt like Flacco was using that a lot. But it's a very useful play here, and give Pickens a chance when he's got a one-on-one on the outside, and Wilson does here, and they get a huge gain. This would be a theme throughout the game of how effective it is. And now we can see this from this view. You can see the crossers coming over. And the big utility of the crossers in this situation, like I said, was these two crossing over here. They ended up, you can't see the deep safety in this view. This is the robber who's going to run with Freiermuth. But the deep safety started running with Jefferson before he was able to pass him off to Sauce Gardner as he came across the zone. But there's a deep safety right there. You can see him. But no chance to be involved in this deep ball over here. Pickens with the great ball skills. And look at how well he used his body to just give the defender no chance of making a play at this ball. He just boxed him out. Great physical play. First down and a field flipping play for the Steelers. All right, we're at the next drive of the game now. And the Jets have a 2nd and 9 at their own 40-yard line with about 6:58 to go in the second quarter. They're up 7-6 at this point. And the Jets come out in 12 personnel. They've got one running back, and they've got the two tight ends. And what they end up running, they end up having one tight end chip help on Watt. Let's see which tight end that ends up being. Okay, that's the outside tight end. So he chip helps on Watt. They send the receiver here and the inside tight end deep. And then they bring, this looks like Wilson here, over on a dig route. And honestly, the route combinations don't matter too much in this play because the two defensive tackles just obliterate this play. Like, it's very interesting to see how this ended up. I think I mean, it was just a comedy of errors, I feel like, it with the inside. I think the first thing is that Keanu Benton just puts a devastating swim move on the center and just gets right past him, right there. And then the second thing that happens is Larry Ogunjobi kind of pushes toward the outside. And so since the tackle is initially helping, or the tight end is initially helping on TJ Watt, the tackle starts helping on Ogunjobi as he comes to the outside. And the tackle clearly wants to pass him off to the guard. But they try to do that in a moment where, the tackle gets a lot of depth, so that's a lot of ground for the guard to make up. And it's right at the moment where Breece Hall is trying to squeeze out and get open for an underneath sit route. So the end result is Ogunjobi comes too far in deep for them to actually make this pass. And the reason why the tackle is passing him off is because here comes TJ Watt. So the tackle is trying to pass him off to the guard, but the moment they're trying to do this is right here. Look who's in the way, Breece Hall. And the tackle allows too much depth so that the guard has too far to try to get in front of him. So Ogunjobi gets through as well as Benton. And look how fast they get through. So let's just watch this piece in real time. I mean, it almost looks like it's a screen. If not for the fact that the linemen are not trying to get up in front of Breece Hall, I mean, they get through so fast, it looks like it's a screen. This is just like a jailbreak on the interior line. Not at all what's supposed to happen. So the route combination ends up not really mattering, except for the fact that Breece Hall does get through, and Aaron Rodgers, in his last-ditch attempt to save this play, just dumps it off to Hall. So then we get to the point here. We've got Breece Hall, and we've got 4 Steelers around him. I will say the pursuit from the Steelers' defensive lineman, particularly this man, Cam Hayward, is so impressive. Watch Hayward here. He's trying to rush against Tyron Smith over here. He sees Rodgers hasn't even thrown the ball yet. Right? Aaron Rodgers is holding the ball here. Cam Hayward is recognizing what's happening already. So it's not just hustle, it's IQ too. Rodgers throws the ball here, and look how Hayward is here and ready to start getting involved in the play. At the same time, underneath, TJ Watt sees what's happening. He tries to actually make a play on the pass and then you've got your 2 linebackers, Landon Roberts and Patrick Queen. So what happens next, I'm unfortunately going to blame on Landon Roberts here. This is a situation where you got 4 guys. All you got to do from his position here is you have help in here. You have 2 guys. Don't let him beat you out this way. And Landon Roberts takes way too far inside of a path as he's converging. He needs to converge with a little more of a contain aspect to him because he's got 3 other guys there that just corral him and make the tackle for about a 5-yard gain. He goes too far inside. And then when he lunges, he ends up taking out TJ Watt and Patrick Queen. So suddenly you have 3 guys that are incapacitated, and Breece Hall is still running free. Out of the 4, the one guy who's still there is the slowest guy. He's a great hustler, Cam Hayward, but he's too slow. And now you got Breece Hall in the open field. And the other major mistake, again, is here from Dante Jackson. Again, your responsibility is just contain. You have guys coming. You have reinforcements. Don't lunge, get yourself out of position. Just contain. But instead, he stops and tries to lunge and make a tackle. All you want to do is, you don't have to tackle him. Just make sure he can't go anywhere for the half a second it's going to take for these 2 guys to corral him from behind. But Breece Hall is good in the open field. You know, as you can see, it's not just that Landon Roberts missed. I mean, he's got to keep that contained. But, you know, maybe Breece Hall is a little shiftier than he anticipated, and probably the same for Dante Jackson. They weren't expecting him to be that shifty. And suddenly he's off to the races, and he gets all the way inside the 5-yard line before Minkah Fitzpatrick's able to knock him out of bounds. Here it is from this view, and let's start by watching these defensive tackles, especially Benton's swim move. I mean, he just wins so fast on this play. Boom, gone. And then look here. This is where we're talking about the right tackle is too far in. The guard is not able to make up that ground, and it's not helped by the fact that Breece Hall's right in between the action. So Aaron Rodgers, this is just a straight-up jailbreak. He does well to just dump this off. And look, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 Steelers right here. And this is where the route that Landon Roberts takes to him needs to be a little bit more toward the outside. Instead, he comes in, he takes a very hard angle inside to the point that he overruns it as Breece Hall's coming out. If he's just able to contain there, the four of them just squash him for a 4-yard gain. But instead, he takes out Watt and Queen, and now we're off to the races, and Jackson's not able to contain, and Hall almost takes us for a score. Minkah manages to track him down. The Jets will be inside the 5-yard line, and they ultimately end up scoring a touchdown. Now the Steelers are down 15-6 because after a penalty on the point after attempt, Minkah Fitzpatrick got called for using leverage, much to the ire of the Steelers special teams coach. I think it was quite a judgment call there, whether he actually used leverage or whether he just, his hand, he touched the lineman as he jumped over. I don't know that he pushed off of him. It's a tough call, judgment call, but it went against the Steelers, and the Jets ended up trying a 2-point conversion after that and converting. So they were up 15-6 at this point. The Steelers start their next drive at the 30-yard line, and they've got 1st and 10. Now well into the second quarter, and the Steelers come out here in 12 personnel. They've got Jaylen Warren, the one running back. They've got Darnell Washington over here and Freiermuth over here. So again, a bigger setup. Team like the Steelers, they're definitely trying to make you have to account for a potential run. Well, they do even more than that. They block this play up like they're running power, a variation of power where they're pulling Siumalu and they're pulling the tight end Washington. So this is looking, for all intents and purposes, like a run play. And what they end up doing off of it, they get Van Jefferson coming and running a corner pattern. They get Pickens running an over, and they've got Freiermuth running a drag. So they're kind of giving Wilson 3 routes that are coming over to this side of the field. Idea being that you fake the handoff here on power, and you're really hoping that the unblocked defensive end crashes down, loses contain, and lets Wilson roll out to his left, where he's going to get 1, 2, 3 guys that have routes that are moving over to the left. Well, what ends up happening is the defensive end actually maintains good contain and charges up the field, and by the time Wilson gets turned, he's got the defensive end right in his face. Wilson makes a great play here of just stopping his motion, finding the gap here before the end can get to him, finding a throwing lane. And this is a great throw. Look at that. I mean, that is a dart to be throwing from that position. You see a lot of quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes included, make throws from these kind of unfortunate situations where you have to improvise. I don't think you see a lot of them throw a dart like that. Like, that's a perfect throw. He hits him on the run and in stride. Freiermuth ends up running after the catch to get a total gain of 30 yards. And the real credit is to how good of a throw this was, that he could just catch it in stride and go. Extra points, too, for Pickens for making this block and not getting a penalty. Like, you're not allowed to block back toward the line of scrimmage. So what does he do? He just gets in the way. Excellent job by Pickens. That's exactly how you want your receivers blocking downfield. The other thing I want to note on this play is that the defensive end over here thinks it's a run because, again, they're pulling pulling, and then play action. Like, this looks like they're running power. And the defensive end, since he thinks it's a run, he thinks Freiermuth is going to block him. And he ends up knocking Freiermuth almost down. Freiermuth does a great job maintaining his balance and still getting out to his route so that he's available there for Wilson, who's in trouble. But look at this. Like, he kind of gets nailed a little bit here. And he stumbles, manages to keep his balance, and he's there. This is a great play. Maybe, the best throw in my opinion, from Russell Wilson all day. It's a very difficult throw, and he did a great job getting that to him. We can see it here, and I want you to really look at the line here. I mean, you can see how this looks like a run play. Here they come, they're pulling. You've got the guard over here, the play action over here to the running back. Wilson comes out, and great discipline from the defensive end here. One of the things I always complain about, the Chiefs don't do it as much because George Karlaftis now also has very good contained discipline, but I hate when people lose contain here because it's just so easy for the quarterback, but he does a great job, makes it tough, and look at that throw. Right on the money, 30-yard gain for the Steelers. Get the ball moving and change the field a little bit. All right, we're nearing the end of the second quarter here. The Jets have the ball on their own 36-yard line. They're in a 2-minute drill trying to move the ball here and get some points before half. They're up 15-6 at this point. Fairly well in control of this game. And they come out lined up in what looks like 11 personnel here. Their running back, Breece Hall, is actually lined up wide here. And here's their tight end. So they got 3 wide receivers. The Steelers appear to be in their dime package again. I think they've only got 1 linebacker on the field. That's Patrick Queen. And looks like they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive backs. Although this looks like Peyton Wilson, so they might be a nickel here. I think Peyton Wilson has gone out to follow the running back, Breece Hall. So they got 2 linebackers and 5 defensive backs, so that puts them in the nickel. All right. So what the Jets are going to try to do, they've got Hall is going to come in on an in-cutting route. Devontae Adams is going to try to find space along the sideline, and they're going to run Garrett Wilson on a post. The Steelers are going to run a cover 2 shell, and they're going to kind of leave the flats. So they're kind of doing a more like cloud cover 2. You got your 2 safeties back, Elliott and Fitzpatrick, and they're kind of leaving the flats. The outer defenders are more in cloud coverage. And remember, one might have anticipated man coverage from their initial alignment because they had Peyton Wilson out with Breece Hall, the running back. So they had lined him up out there, but he ended up just taking the cloud responsibility. And instead, you've got corners like Beanie Bishop taking the middle of the field. And he's kind of playing that Mike in the Tampa 2. So if you remember, in like a Tampa 2 cover 2 situation, you've got the safeties that are covering deep halves. And usually the big gap in the cover 2 is in the middle of the field. And so what some teams will do, and they call this the Tampa 2, is they'll have their middle linebacker, who in this case would have been Peyton Wilson, but in this case appears to be Beanie Bishop based on the way they aligned, kind of cover that area. So it kind of starts looking like a cover 3 because the safeties will take those wide splits and you'll get somebody covering the middle of the field. Anyway, on this throw here, as you can see, there's Highsmith gets some pressure on the end, but Rodgers ends up having a decent pocket here. And he steps back, and what he's looking at is he really wants to hit Garrett Wilson here on the post. Like we said in the cover 2, there is some room here in the middle. Now, I would argue that Beanie Bishop has gotten pretty good depth in this situation, so his window is not really wide, right? Like if he tries to push the ball a little bit, the safeties have time to drive on that and make a play. And he can't really throw it much more underneath because he's got Beanie Bishop. But what he sees is that Bishop, if you notice, his hips are pointed toward the sideline. So my guess is that he knows that Wilson's coming in, and he doesn't think that Bishop is going to be prepared for that ball placement since his hips are out pointed toward the sideline. But Bishop actually does an excellent job here of getting eyes back on Rodgers as he's going to throw. So Rodgers is throwing it right here. And then rotating and getting into the passing lane, and he actually brings the ball in with one hand and gets an interception. So it almost kind of feels like he baited Rodgers into this pick, because he's following Wilson. He's got eyes on the quarterback. He sees where the throw's coming and just swivels and gets the interception right there. I mean, this would have been a tight window throw anyway. But guys like Aaron Rodgers, the difference being that they often will make this throw if the corner isn't looking. So Beanie Bishop still has eyes on Rodgers, so he can see when the throw's coming. If he's in this orientation and his eyes are back on Garrett Wilson, then I feel like this throw makes sense, because he's not going to know when the ball's coming and he's not going to be able to react like this. But Bishop does a good job, even though he is, his orientation, he's kind of facing that direction. He does a good job of keeping eyes back, and he reacts really quickly to the throw and manages to come back around and get that interception. Huge play for the Steelers. And now we can see it a lot more from Rodgers' perspective here from the end zone view. So let's see. As he drops back to throw, this is what he's looking at. So see, he sees Bishop in this orientation. He knows that Wilson's going to come across here. So he's thinking he's going to have him open right here since Bishop is faced the other way. But Bishop does a really great job, again, of rotating. Oh, look at that reach. He gets that arm out there and brings that ball in. It's a great play by Beanie Bishop. And honestly, I just don't think that Rodgers thought he could make this play. Well, he did, and this was a huge momentum swing. At this point, it was 15-6. The Jets were leading, driving toward the end of the first half, and now the Steelers get the ball back with a chance to score themselves. All right, we're still at the end of the second quarter here. There are 43 seconds to go. Steelers down 15-6, and they've got 2nd and 7 here on the Jets' 40. The Steelers are in 11 personnel. That means they've got one running back, one tight end. They've got 3 wide receivers. The Jets appear to be in the nickel. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs, and they look to have 2 linebackers in the middle of the field. Now the Steelers run I don't know, if you play Madden, this is the exact 4 verticals out of an 11 personnel set. If you have a single back and 1 tight end in your formation, you run 4 verticals. This is in the Madden playbook. So they've got Pickens going long. They've got Freiermuth coming over. They've got Austin going up the seam. Here's a vertical, and the running back runs the route that they run in Madden too. He runs comes out, runs, kind of cuts over the middle here. I don't remember what this route is called out of the running back orientation. But here they run it, actually. So Wilson, if you watch what Russell Wilson's trying to do, what Wilson does on this play is he's looking the safety to stay in the middle of the field. And he's doing that because he's already decided, he sees a single high safety. He's going to throw this to Pickens. So the beginning part of this play is just to prevent the safety from already making a move over there. He's looking in the middle of the field to try to hold the safety for as long as he can. Then you notice he's looking at the safety, then watch Wilson right here. He's going to turn his head, see Pickens, and launch it. So he had predetermined based on the coverage that he was going to throw this to Pickens. And the reason why I bring that up is, funnily enough, as he's about to throw, Austin's wide open, Freiermuth's wide open. So both of these guys ended up beating their men handily. And so if he had wanted to drop a pass in here or here, he would have had either Austin or Freiermuth. I don't fault him because, look, you got George Pickens going one-on-one. You know you're going to have him on a vertical route one-on-one. That's fine for that to be your first read, and you're going to put it up there without really, scanning the field. I understand that. Wilson ends up throwing it up, and we spoke about this on an earlier clip. There's real value if you can throw it up there and underthrow the ball slightly. And we talked about this scenario when there's a corner trailing, because the corner doesn't have the opportunity to look back for the ball. When the receiver slows down, the corner runs into the receiver and you get a pass interference call. I mean, this is clearly pass interference, but it's just a tough spot for a corner. You're at full tilt trying to catch up to a wide receiver and the ball is underthrown. So as the receiver slows down, you're going to run into the receiver and you're going to get the pass interference call. So there's real value in being a quarterback and being able to just lob this ball up to a receiver that's winning. I mean, obviously, if you throw it out ahead of him, you don't even have to worry about anything. He'll catch it. But if you're unsure about his ability to catch it, you underthrow that a little bit, and when he comes back to it, he's going to get the pass interference call. And that's what happened here. It's funny, like Russell Wilson throws a good deep ball, and so there's value in his deep ball because of just the fact that he throws it well. And as Chris Collinsworth brought up during this game, the fact that he puts a lot of air under the ball makes it easier for him to drop the ball into a receiver without the defender being able to get in the ball's trajectory. You know, when you throw it more on a line, as Patrick Mahomes has been doing recently, you have to be more accurate with it because your receiver can't just run under it like they can with a more like arcing ball. And B, it's easier for a defender to get a hand up in the trajectory of the ball. So Wilson, just based on how he throws a deep ball and his accuracy, throws a good deep ball. But also the fact that he occasionally underthrows these balls when he puts them up like this is also beneficial because you get these pass interference calls. And here was a big one to Pickens, and they get a pass interference call on Sauce Gardner, which gets them inside the 10-yard line in an attempt to get points before half. On the second half, with the Steelers down 15-13, there are about 12 minutes or so to go in the third quarter, and they're facing a 3rd and 7 at their own 24. So during that end of the half sequence we just looked at, they ended up scoring a touchdown. They forced a punt for the Jets on the first drive of the third quarter, and now the Steelers had the ball but faced with 3rd and 7. So the Steelers, again, are in 11 personnel. They've got Jalen Warren as their running back, Pat Freiermuth as their tight end. That's 11. And they got 3 wide receivers. And the Jets appear to be in, well, let's see, is this a DB or a linebacker? So this is either nickel, because we've got 3 DBs, 4 DBs here. And if this is a DB, that makes it 5. And then you've got 2 linebackers right here. So what the Steelers end up doing out of their bunch is they're going to run, this is Jefferson on an over. Austin's going to run a drag underneath that ends up forming a mesh with Freiermuth. And then Pickens is going to run a wheel route. So they do a good job. They got man coverage here. The Jets are running single high again, single high man. And basically, you know, when you're running single high man on a passing down, you're saying, like, let's see if your receivers can beat our corners. You know, we're going to man you up. We're not going to give a bunch of safety help. Let's see what you got. And, well, let's see what the Steelers had. So here comes the route combination. And if you see the route combination of the bunch, this was a great design by Arthur Smith. Calvin Austin kind of pops open pretty early because Sauce Gardner has a lot to contend with going through. It looks like the Jets kind of decided that, because Sauce Gardner looks like he's deciding right here. Initially, he's thinking maybe his responsibility is going to be Van Jefferson, and then he comes over to get with Austin. But Austin ends up popping open and would have been, an easy first down on this 3rd and 7. You can see down here, Freiermuth is running open too. I guess we need to look at this more about right here because this is when Wilson ends up throwing this ball. So Austin is a great candidate coming across the middle. Freiermuth also, his defender's not really able to run with him. But Pickens has a step on the wheel route, and this is your deep route. So, and the safety appears more concerned with Van Jefferson's over. So Pickens is a good shot here, right? Because if you throw a perfect ball here, this could be a touchdown. You have a great yards after the catch receiver, fast receiver, and there's literally nobody over the top to help here. Now, unfortunately, we talked about Russell Wilson underthrowing balls. He underthrew this one slightly, because if he puts that ball so that Pickens can run to it like here, this may be a touchdown. But he underthrew it slightly, and there's a bit of a juggle. It bounces off the defender. Pickens, with great concentration, is able to hang on, and he gets a 37-yard gain out of it. So again, the value of when you've got Pickens one-on-one, just throw one up for him. And Wilson, especially with this ball trajectory, we'll see if it was coincidence or not. This is the first game that Russell Wilson played, but I'll tell you, some receivers made some tough catches in this game. And if Chris Collinsworth's insinuation, or his theory that the ball being thrown with that higher arc makes it easier to catch for receivers, that might even be part of the explanation why the Steelers receivers were making tough catches like this all night. Freiermuth will make a tough catch later in this as well. And so you do wonder if it's just a little bit easier on the receivers. So we can see it now here from Wilson's perspective. It looks like he wanted, again, Pickens all the way. It's like we said, if the only goal is third down conversion, we've got crossers with both guys trailing here. Hitting either one of them probably would result in a first down. But I like the aggressiveness, right? You got your best receiver, one of the best run after the catch guys. He's got man coverage, no safety over the top. If you can get him this ball, there's a chance to score. So I like the aggressiveness. Wasn't a perfect throw, but still resulted in a big gain. Got to give your playmakers chances, and it seemed like Russell Wilson definitely did it in this game. We'll see if that's something that'll be kind of a permanent fixture with him. All right, we're still on the same drive. Steelers still down 15-13. There is about 10:08 to go in the third quarter, and the Steelers have a 3rd and 5 at the Jets' about 34-yard line. Steelers remain in 11 personnel. They've got one running back, one tight end. Another big third down here. They've got their 3 wide receivers. And the Jets, again, appear to have matched up with them in nickel. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs, and their 2 linebackers are right here. And the Jets, again, are playing single high. This time the safety, as you can see, is shaded over very heavily to the side that Pickens is on. But again, these third downs, they're really kind of daring the Steelers to beat their coverage. And Arthur Smith did a good job of giving his guys chances. So what they end up doing is they run kind of simultaneously pick plays on either side. So Pickens comes up and tries to set a pick for Calvin Austin running an out route. And Jefferson comes in and tries to set a pick for Freiermuth going up the sideline. And I think Wilson seemed more interested in reading the right side of the play first. And Jefferson, I want you to really watch Jefferson, did a great job of picking. Like, he comes up and then avoids the contact right here. He kind of gets in the way, avoids the contact. So you're never going to get an offensive pass interference call if you don't actually contact the guy. But he is involved enough to kind of slow the defender slightly. Wilson throws this as like a timing pattern. He actually slightly overthrows this ball. Look at how far Freiermuth has to reach out for it, and makes a great catch. Going back to what I was saying on the previous play, which is receivers made tough catches during this game, and I wonder how much of it had to do with the trajectory of Russell Wilson's passes. Time will tell to see if receivers continue making tough catches for him. But this was really well done, both by Jefferson and Freiermuth. Jefferson setting a good pick without committing a penalty. Freiermuth making a tough catch, and this was also great from Arthur Smith, recognizing man and putting his players in with plays that will help them succeed. He had pick plays dialed up. And the Steelers were ready for what the Jets had to offer. Here it is from the end zone view. And you can see the trajectory of the pass. And look at Freiermuth do such a great job of reeling that in. It's a big first down. All right, so on that previous drive, the Steelers kicked a field goal. So at this point, they're leading 16-15. And the Jets have the ball, and they're now in 2nd and 10. There's about 7:22 or so, something like that, to go in the third quarter. Jets are now trailing after having been up as much as 15-6. Now they are down 16-15. The Jets are here in 11 personnel. Here's their running back, Breece Hall, coming out into empty, and there's their tight end. And the Steelers look like they're in nickel. They've got 2 linebackers here, and then they've got 5 defensive backs, 3, 4, 5. The Jets end up sending Davante Adams up the seam. He kind of takes an inside and then goes up the seam. And let's see, yeah, there it is. So Lazard comes out into the slot, and Lazard ends up going up the seam as well. So Adams, he kind of takes a little bit of an inside and up the seam. Lazard goes up the seam. Breece Hall ends up coming in on an in-cut, and Garrett Wilson ends up doing an out and up. So he ends up going up the sideline. The Steelers kind of run their more standard cover 3. So they got Porter going back. Minka's in the middle of the field. He's going back. And then they just kind of sit underneath in the cover 3 so we can watch the routes develop. So here we said Hall doing his in-cut. Lazard, there he goes up the seam. Adams is kind of coming in and then going up the seam. And here comes Wilson. He's going to do his out and up. Here are the 3 deep for the Steelers. And then you can see their zone defenders sitting underneath. I think really Beanie Bishop. So what ends up happening is, let's kind of go through the play first, and then we'll kind of describe what Beanie Bishop did. So Wilson's going to start coming up, and this is what Rodgers wants to hit. He wants to hit Wilson as Adams' seam route is starting to draw Porter's attention because Porter has to run with the deep guy. This creates a void for Wilson in the back here. So Rodgers tries to hit Wilson, but first of all, I would say Beanie Bishop did such a good job of not only getting width and coming out with this route, but getting depth too. It would have been very easy for him to leave a bigger hole here because, he has a deep defender, but as the deep defender gets pulled in by the seam route, Bishop might be, sitting a little more underneath, but he feels the receiver going back. He goes with him. And he doesn't just get that depth, but he gets good width out to the sideline because he's the guy covering the sideline in the shallow area. And he gets enough that this becomes like a somewhat tight window throw. Well, it's a good throw from Rodgers. Rodgers really makes a great throw here, and he hits the tight window. But Bishop does enough with his reaching for the ball and almost tipping it, honestly, that I think he gets into Garrett Wilson's head enough that Wilson is probably concerned about this ball being tipped and maybe anticipates it. And Wilson ends up not being able to secure the catch, and the ball pops up right to Bishop, who in an opportune moment takes it and runs it all the way back to the 1-yard line, ending up being a huge interception. So we'll see it kind of played out in full. Didn't mean to do that. So again, we're watching Wilson is going to go out and up. There he's the out cut and then up, and Bishop, look at the depth. Almost tips it, but then gets to it. And I know, people will have seen this mentioned in other places, but look at Davante Adams. Davante Adams had run all the way down the seam, like he's off the screen at this point. And after the interception happens, he tracks back. Here he is right here coming onto the screen. And just watch him through this play. Comes all the way, and he's the one that ends up making the tackle that saves the touchdown there. So excellent hustle from the guy that's like your best receiver on your team. But again, let's watch this from the end zone view. Rodgers looking for Wilson, and again, Rodgers really makes a great throw here. He hits it right in that gap. You can see how small that window gets by the time the ball gets there. Bishop almost knocks this ball down. And I think that's what ultimately did Wilson in and broke his concentration. He might have honestly thought this ball was being tipped. And again, we can see Devontae Adams. This is actually a great view to look at his hustle. Just watch him on this play. He sees he's going to have a chance. He turns on the Jets, as he is a Jet now, and gets him down at the 1 yard line. That's a great hustle. But another huge play for the Steelers defense, now up 16-15 with the ball on the Jets' 1 yard line. And we're now at the first play of the fourth quarter. At this point, the Steelers are up 23-15. So the Steelers scored a touchdown. We saw the Beanie Bishop interception return to the 1 yard line. The Steelers scored on a quarterback sneak right after that. The Jets actually had a pretty long drive after that and missed a field goal. So Steelers got the ball back. They've been moving it, and they now are at the 50 yard line. This is the first play of the fourth quarter. And the Steelers remain in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. And the Jets continue on playing single high. So, again, not really respecting the passing game at all. And the thing, too, about the Jets single high, it's not even like they were having their robber, like, out here. Like, they've got everybody packed in to play the run. Well, the Steelers aren't afraid. They actually run power into this. So let's kind of work out how they're going to block everything up. So what they're going to do is they're going to take the tight end Freiermuth, and he's there to kick out the defensive end. They're going to pull McCormick, and McCormick's actually going to block this defensive tackle. Isaac Seumalo is going to come over and help seal off this defensive tackle with the help of the center. Broderick Jones ends up here. He's more concerned about this guy ends up blitzing, but he's kind of keeping eyes on both to prevent anybody from crashing in from the backside. Dan Moore ends up coming here and trying to get the linebacker here. And Van Jefferson is responsible for this guy right here, this defensive back. So we can see this in motion. Here you can see McCormick starting to pull right at the snap. Remember, he's pulling to block this guy. And you can see Seumalo moving in to help with the double on the other defensive tackle. So here they go. You can see Dan Moore is climbing to make this block here. Broderick is looking at these two here. And Freiermuth with a nice kick-out block on the end, and that's the gap you're trying to create in this power run. Trying to create a gap between that end and this tackle. That's why you kind of have McCormick rotate out and Seumalo seal down. You're trying to create a wall here so you can create a lane for the running back to run through. And they do such a good job. Look at this. Like, the Jets started with, single high, and pretty much everybody else was in the box. And the Steelers blocked it up extremely well. And look at Najee Harris go. He continues to have great burst when he's allowed to have a head of steam and go. Look at him fly through that hole. He ended up, I think, with a 34-yard gain. Huge run there. All right, so we can see this again. Let's start left to right. So Freiermuth is going to kick out the end. Our tackle here is responsible for this linebacker. Seumalo is going to block down to the defensive tackle. He's going to help double team with the center. McCormick is going to come out and block this defensive tackle. Broderick is responsible for the backside guys. It ends up being 44 who blitzes. And you just watch it all come together. So right at the snap, you can see center here. Sumalu's coming to help. McCormick's coming around to get the tackle. Moore is trying to get second level to get to the linebacker. And here's Broderick sealing off the end here. And here comes Freiermuth to do that kick out. So the idea being that nobody can come in this lane. So I'll go get you. We're going to make a wall here to try to create an opening between these two guys. This guy is going to be taken by Jefferson coming up here. So you kick him out, create a wall on this side, and create a lane to go through. Boom. Right there for Najee Harris. Gets a huge gain all the way down to the 16-yard line. We're now at 7:14 to go in the fourth quarter. The Steelers are up 30-15. And they've got the ball at their own 25-yard line with a 2nd down and 10. The Steelers come out again in 11 personnel. They've got the 1 running back, 1 tight end. And the Jets again are playing single high. Got the 1 safety back. They did a lot of cover 1 man in this game. Again, just really daring the Steelers to beat them with the passing game. And the Steelers kept doing it. So what the Steelers end up running here, Jefferson ends up running a corner pattern. And they run kind of a dagger concept on this side. So Pickens, the inside guy, goes deep. Austin runs with him and then runs a dig route underneath it. Pickens kind of clears out. And then Freiermuth kind of leaks over late. And I think Najee Harris, too, ends up leaking over late. So if we watch how this develops, Sauce Gardner is giving Calvin Austin a ton of room. He must be really concerned about his deep speed. And so, but Pickens is getting jammed right at the line. And so they've got Pickens running the deep on the dagger concept. And if you look, Austin runs the in-cut, the dig route, right underneath Pickens. And Gardner coming over the top. I mean, at this point, he's really got to hustle to get around, unless he's not like recognizing the route completely, but he's kind of caught flat-footed a little bit here and runs a couple extra steps. And so at this point, Calvin Austin just, he almost like runs into getting himself picked. I'm not really 100% sure what he's doing here. Here he is, like he's giving Austin a lot of space, but I feel like once you see him go, unless, you've got to get around this, because otherwise from this point when Austin makes his cut, Sauce still takes 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up the field. It's really strange. I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, he's, I believe, been first team All-Pro corner both times both years he's played in the league. I'm not really sure what he's doing here. I would imagine right there, like, he seems to reckon, you see his feet change there. The only thing I could be thinking is maybe the Jets in these kind of man-to-man situations against a dagger, the expectation is this guy comes off of Pickens and runs with the dagger and Sauce will continue, because he just kind of keeps running up with Pickens here. And, I mean, Austin's wide open. Wilson finds him, and he ends up getting like a 36-yard gain on this play. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that must be it, right? I can't think of any other reason why Sauce Gardner is so slow to get out there and try to get to Austin. It's possible he thought they were going to pass off routes. Who knows? In any case, nobody runs with Austin, and he's wide open. Actually, yeah, if we see afterward, look here at Sauce Gardner. It looks like he's trying to tell 27 something. So maybe we're on to something. Maybe he was expecting a pass off here. That's the only thing that makes sense. It's so weird to see him continuing to run with Pickens after seeing the cut in. I guess he might have really been expecting 27 to pass, like them to pass that route off and switch. Because look, You see his hand out here. Like, he definitely looks like he's trying to be like, what are you doing, man? So that's my guess as to what was supposed to be happening. Here we can see from the end zone view. We won't really get a great view of the coverage, but nice play action. And then look at what Wilson sees. Austin's wide open. And they end up getting a big gain here. Right, well, here's the final play of this week's film review. The Steelers have a 4th and 2 at the Jets' 10-yard line with it's like 26 seconds to go in the game, I believe. I'm actually not sure. They're up 30-15 at this point. I was wondering, I don't know if Steelers fans will know, is there some reason why they went for this 4th down? I know Tomlin is someone who generally doesn't tend to go for 4th downs that much anyway, but in this case, the game's in hand. I don't know, is there some specific animosity between the Steelers and Jets or something? I was kind of surprised that they decided to go for this 4th down. 4th and 2 here. The game's in hand. It's 30-15. But it's a well-executed play from the Steelers. Well, from most of the Steelers. They end up in a really heavy package here. They've got 3 tight ends, and this will actually count as a tight end 2 since he's covering the left tackle. So they've got 4 tight ends here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 running back. So this is 14 personnel. 1 running back, 4 tight ends. And this is a pretty simple run. It looks like they're just running inside zone. Couple things to note from this run. One is that poor Broderick Jones gets absolutely destroyed on this play in a way that almost blows the play up entirely. Here comes Jones, and he actually ends up getting put right down to Najee Harris's feet. Harris does a good job kind of stepping over and avoiding, and the interior line held up pretty well, McCormick. But I think the big thing was that the left guard, Isaac Seumalo, absolutely dominated his block. And look at the movement he created, which is what provided the hole for Harris to get through and ultimately score a touchdown. So as poorly as Broderick Jones did on this rep, Isaac Seumalo did that well and ended up kind of negating the negativity. So, when Harris had to hop over here, it was nice that everybody else over here had kind of held their line. So he didn't have anyone else to contend with. And then he was able to find the hole created by Seumalo and get through for a touchdown. And this is what ultimately ended up creating the final score, 37-15. So we watch it here. Here's Jones. Here's Seumalo. So Jones got really shoved right back, and so Harris did a good job of hopping and avoiding. But he did a good job, too, of doing it laterally, because the hole that was created, the linebacker tries to come through, but since Harris kind of jump cut left, he's out of that linebacker's reach. And then look at Seumalo just dominating. And look at the hole he creates. Harris comes through for a touchdown. And that's it. 37-15. The Steelers beat the Jets on Sunday Night Football. Well, thanks again to all of you who've been following along these film reviews and our podcasts on the Steeler Thoughts Chief Feelings YouTube channel. Also, thanks to you who have been listening to the audio version of the podcast. You can get that wherever you download podcasts. And finally, thanks to those of you following along on social media at STCF715 on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. We try to post clips of everything we do, and on Twitter we try to post some clips and discuss the games, the Chiefs and Steelers games, in the hours after the games conclude. Well, hope you all follow along. We're looking forward to the next set of games, and we'll have more podcasts and film reviews coming. Thanks so much. Until next time.